they're going to be defensive. When they're defensive, if it's a dangerous animal like a venomous snake, crocodile, or a croc monitor, which is the worst lizard bite you can get, including Gila monsters and beaded lizards, because it is life-changing. Speaking from experience, you will never be the same if it bites you a good bite on any extremity. You're going to lose use of it. My finger's crippled from the warning bite, and it didn't bite me hard, it would have bit my finger off.
And from what I understand, Tom, it was just a bite and a let go.
What happened with the croc monitor bite? Actually, the female that bit me was a pretty tame one. We had fed her and everything. Her name was Bo. She belonged to Aaron Cleveland, which is a guy that used to have traveling exhibits for the AZA, and she became what he considered too dangerous to keep, and so he brought her down here and put her on breeding loan. She died actually egg-bound, by the way, and she had was beginning to get gravid, and the females will attack the males usually when they're actually want to start to produce eggs, kind of like the tree monitors do, and you have to remove the males or separate them. And they were fighting, and both were bloody, and I was by myself in the back with nobody to help, and my employee was up front. So I went in with a net, and I netted her, squatted down, and I had my finger like this, holding the net down in my hand with her in it. And I was pushing Bill back with my other hand. He had his mouth open coming for her, but he wasn't targeting me. He was targeting her, so he didn't try to bite me when I pushed him back. And then she tore through the net, looked at my finger, reached over, and just simply did this. And let me go real quick. Didn't even bite hard, but I felt the teeth grate the bone. And when I looked, my finger exploded. So then she's in the net with her head stuck through it, so I had to catch her. I threw her up on this side and let her, because I knew she'd grab hold of my shirt and my torso with her claws, and pinned her under my arm, holding her neck, and then used my bad hand to close the door and push Bill off my foot until I could get out. Just put the lock on the door and went up front and got my employee and came to the back. He took the monitor from me so I could go get a towel and wrap her on my hand. I was in the hospital 5 days with micro hand surgery, and I have now the obligatory bent snake bite finger without the snake bite.
Yeah.
I've never even had to take any venom yet or anything like that. Even with all the venomous snakes over the years, I've never really had much in the way of it. The worst I've ever been hurt by any reptile was that. But she didn't really need to do it. I would have bit me too. I mean, she was getting hurt. She was fighting back after she attacked him first.
So now with a bite and a release, that was one thing. If she would have bit and slashed.
If she had bit down hard and just,
it would have been done
like that, my finger would have been gone. The reason they did the microsurgery was to save my finger.
Yep.
They may as well not have it. That's making it's not really usable.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, once you understand the unwelting of the animal and you can understand the ethology or behavior better, then it makes it easy to understand what you keep and provide for it. And the first thing any new keeper should do when they acquire any new reptile is to forget the forums and all this other horse shit, because there's so much bad information parroted by these people on forums that don't have a clue where the animal even comes from in nature. What you need to do is Google the science. Learn where the animal comes from. Learn how it lives. Check its natural territory. All reptiles usually have a home territory, including snakes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like 50 feet around from where it lives or 10 hectares. Like dry marcon, they cover like hectares of land, which is why everybody goes in Florida, because they get killed by cars because they travel so far. And there's fewer and fewer wild places, and they just get out on the road and they get killed. So once you understand the basics of those things, even keeping them like I'm keeping them, I'm still keeping them in a box. But I figure for a crocodile monitor to do it right, you need a cage 12 by 16 feet and by at least 8 feet high, because the stress level on croc monitors is very high when they interact with people. If it's one that's afraid of people or an import, unless they can look down on you.
Yeah.
They can look down at you. Then you become a person that brings you food. Then they start to like you. Then they bond with you. And once they bond with you, like most of them, we have 5 here. We hand-feed all of them. And the 2 biggest males, one of them was in the jungle in 2020 in New Guinea. Scarface. He's overnight. He's about 3 meters long. It's the biggest one I have, bigger than Bill.
Yeah, that's amazing. So,
I'm eating like raw chicken out of my hand.
yeah,
He
so
just doesn't care.
so Tom, what I'm picking up from what you're saying is over the years with my captive born monitors here, I started my Mike's Monitor socialization caging system, and I figured out through watching them and their behaviors that these animals gain their security from being in the water. So when they go in the water, they feel totally secure. And what you're saying is with the croc monitors and the tree monitors, they feel more secure when they're above you,
They do.
of course.
Because they're an arboreal lizard. They're like a giant. Think of them as a giant, as a Komodo dragon that's a tree monitor. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But I'm going to tell you this, though. If you ever look at the skull of a Komodo dragon and a crocodile monitor, in my personal opinion, and I've been bit by a Gila monster, which I got a full Monty bite, and it's a horrible thing. By the way, I was breaking a fight up between two Gilas on the same food item then.
Tom, excuse me 1 second, Tom. Can you raise the volume just a little bit? Me and Mike are a lot louder than you.
I'm not sure I know how. Hang on a minute.
I just want to make sure everybody hears what you got to say.
Can you turn the volume up, please? I don't know how to do. I'm artificially intelligent.
Yeah.
So I need the sound turned all the way up. They can hear me. Turn the sound.
Stacy, we just need a little bit higher of a volume. I want to make sure everybody hears what he's got to say.
Can you hear now? That's high as it goes.
Yep.
Yeah, better.
Okay, so anyway, what was I saying?
We're talking about tree monitors being above your head.
Well, we're talking about the bite too. With monitors, a crocodile monitor is very different than any of the other monitors because it potentially, to be perfectly honest with you, the most dangerous bite that I believe you could ever have is from a croc monitor, and that includes the venomous lizards, the bearded lizards, and Gila monsters. I got bit by a Gila monster breaking a fight up from this index finger. This index finger got a full body bite. It swelled up 5 times its size. It turned black. My hand turned black. All the way to my shoulder swelled up and everything. The pain was almost unbearable. But you know what? I didn't even go to the doctor because there's only ever been in history 2 fatalities from a Gila monster bite that both had underlying health conditions. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. They're not going to kill you. And not only that, they don't do any destruction to your hand. My finger is normal. The feeling is normal. This finger is ruined.
Yeah.
Without healing and all of that from the croc, it's life changing. So the bite is worse than a Komodo dragon, even by far, because that big flat head they have with the gums, that's what hides the teeth.
Yep.
And if you saw a skull of a crocodile monitor and a Komodo dragon side by side, which I have in a slide, you would be like, holy smokes.
No, in your opinion, because I've heard also that crocodile monitors can be potentially a lot more dangerous than Komodos because they are above. They can ambush you.
Well, they're not going to ambush you, but in captivity they might. If you keep them wrong, they might.
That's what I meant.
When we first got Bill, which is the big tame one that we let walk around the yard, he gets in bed with Stacy, and she takes selfies with him, laying on her chest with his giant claw on her. He was kept by somebody, and I guess he didn't like the cage and didn't like the guy. In fact, he bit the guy and on the left hand so bad that that's why he sold Bill to me about 6 years ago. It took a year to train Bill because he hated people with a passion. He would come down wherever he was and try to come up behind you to bite. And now, if I put my hand in his mouth, he wouldn't bite at all. But he would. Now, Scarface, the biggest one we have, which is bigger than Bill, it took me 3 weeks to train him, but he was straight from the jungle and hadn't developed that hate for people long term. And because another thing too, they're far more cognitive than people think, and they express sentience. And Michael knows this with his water monitors. They're exactly the same. They understand. They know one person from another. I could literally bring Bill in here. He wouldn't sit here long, but I could sit here and hold him in my arms and talk to him. Literally carry him in the house from out back, which is about 60 or 80 yards from here, from his cage in the back. And He doesn't mind. And even Scarface, when I had to get him off the top this winter, remember Scarface was in New Guinea in 2020 in the jungle. I had to get him by one arm up 8 feet high and pull him off the top. And, because I couldn't get him down with a net. And guess what? He didn't try to bite. He just tongued my hand and looked at me, but that's it.
That's a true testament to your understanding of the animal. And also, when you talk about the umwelt, I never knew what umwelt was, but I tell people all the time when they're trying to work with their animals, I said, look, dude, if you're having a bad day, you're in a fight with your wife, the kids are on your nerves, man, go out in the backyard, do a few ohms, clear your energy. And because, man, these animals really pick up on all that.
Let me just tell you an example of this, which will verify what you're saying. And you're the only other person I've ever had say that, by the way, but except I've said it a lot of times. There's 3 of us now, and we're enjoying a nice conversation, and we're all talking and learning from each other. But if we had one person that we brought in from the outside that was in a pissed off mood, within seconds, our energy would change. We wouldn't feel like that guy, but we're not going to feel like we did. And I believe that in fact, I know all animals pick up energy from each other, all kinds of wild animals from not only their own species, but other species as well. And I believe that when you're not, this statement I make, and I made a meme of it, is certainly true. And I want you to think about this, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about the energy after that. It's only when both the keeper and the kept lose their fear of each other can the magical understanding begin. Because if you're a little afraid of the animal, it's a little afraid of you, it'll never happen. The reason for that is because of the energy level. And most of the time, the problem with the animal, because they're more primitive than we are, even though I'm not taking anything away from them, they're highly intelligent, they're more primitive and respond to energy levels differently than we do. We can look over it, they can't. And when you're afraid of something, you pass on that fear to the animal that you're working with. And when you pass that fear to the animal that you're working with, and it becomes afraid of you because you're afraid, guess what it's going to do? It's going to become defensive. And when it becomes defensive, you got a problem, especially if it's a venomous snake. And that is why in all of these years, and I've got pictures holding up cobras in each hand, hooded up from the time I was 21 years old, kings and everything since I was a kid. Alligators, I had a crocodile for them. I've never been bit by a crocodile other than a baby one. And I've never had a venomous snake by handling a snake. I've had 2 venomous bites through a bag. One was a dry bite, one was not much more than a dry bite. And I got another dry bite where I was putting a male Reptiles pyrus back in a cage, and the female struck out the feeding strike, one of those like super long ones you don't expect them to do. I had my hand on the hook, and she was able to, as she was coming, I saw her coming, and I turned my hand like this, and all she could do is just stick me with the fangs, but not bite down. But I never had to go to the doctor. I've never even been to the doctor for a venomous snake bite.
So never got venom in you?
No, very little. Not enough to even.
So it's a warning shot. It was like a warning.
No, it would have been more than that, except I was fast enough to stop it. And because remember, it's coming, my hand's like this. I turn my hand, it can't bite down.
Oh.
You know what I mean? It can just hit me, but that's all it can do. So that's all it did. And the fang marks made 2 little black marks, but that's it. But
so
there's nothing.
So, Tom, while we're on the subject of our energy working with these animals, and you and I both have been in the same Facebook groups where there's all these freaking experts who, I don't want to say too much. You know what I'm talking about.
Well,
so
they're idiots.
I see these people who, and this all goes in with the energy. You know, I know where they're at, and I know how warm it is where they're at. And I'm talking about the people. And you'll see them with, you know, their hoodie on, the hood up, and they're holding their monitor. They got these hockey gloves on. I try to tell them, with that equipment you're wearing, that equipment is giving that animal the energy that you're afraid. And people say, how do you get it? They ask me, you must have chainmail skin because you handle those animals without the hockey gloves and stuff. And it's got nothing to do with that. It's like you said, I'm not afraid. They're not afraid. And if you know how to handle your monitor, they're not going to rake at your skin, only if you resist them. But if you let them do what they do, you're not going to get torn up.
Or try to pull it off of you. We don't wear gloves here for anything, ever. In fact, when you see me with that big croc monitor on my shoulder and I'm outside in the yard, you don't see any scratch marks on me.
Nope.
When he puts his feet on me, he puts his pads down first, and then he engages his claws in my shirt. He's not clawing me. Stacy has a picture holding him on her shoulder, and she's got her hands out like that. And she goes, "We don't need no damn bitch mittens. We call gloves bitch mittens."
I love it.
I love Stacey's.
Because one of the greatest things that we have, one of the greatest senses we have is our tactile sense. And if we don't have our tactile sense, which you don't have if you use gloves, the lizard also can't understand as well either what you're doing. And like he says, it scares. It scares. And I'm not going to do that. I don't want to keep a bunch of animals that I consider prisoners here. I want to keep animals that are like more or less friends. Like when you walk up to the cages, even with our blue tree and yellow tree monitors, yellow trees were wild caught, blue trees were captive bred here. They don't run away from you. They run up to the door of the cage, hoping that you open the door. And if you go in, they will get on your shoulder and eat off your fingers because they're not afraid. And the yellow tree monitors, I can only see one person now, by the way, on my thing.
There we go.
There we go. Sorry.
Okay. And the yellow trees were in the jungle 3.5 years ago. Adults. And our caiman lizards. If I go up to the caiman lizard cage and it's hot, and one of them's named Gator and the female is named Tiny, and I go, Gator, wherever he is, he'll come out of his burrow, boogie over to the door, and if you open the door, he'll climb out, climb up your leg, and get on your shoulder because he likes to walk around the yard and look around. I used to have a tree monitor named Dirk. We'd put her on our shoulder, and she liked to go walk around the yard. It's just, they're not afraid. You know, and they're not afraid, that makes you safe. And also, I'm going to tell you something else. I can go out and catch wild, venomous snakes. Did you see the video I did of the cottonmouth that was wild caught?
I sure did.
Yes, I did.
Did you see me just pick the cottonmouth up?
Yep.
You know, without a hook. Did you see the cottonmouth try to bite me or even act aggressive in any way or defensive, I should say?
Nope.
Do you know
no
why?
signs of stress, no nothing.
It's not afraid of me, and I'm not afraid of it. And the snake knows it. I even laid my hand 5 inches in front of its face on the table with it sitting there like this. And I said, see the cottonmouth sitting there doing nothing? Look at my hand. It's still doing nothing.
Yep.
Because it's not afraid. If it's not afraid, it opens up a whole new world for the keeper. But and also, if they didn't use gloves, they wouldn't handle them so roughly either because they feel what it feels like if you hold them wrong, and they'd stop doing it because the lizard would teach them by hanging on with their claws.
Absolutely. The gloves and the clothing really takes away from, you know, your energy and your feeling, and you're conveying insecurity to the animal, which is going to make him defensive.
Well, it's because you're insecure.
And there's also an instance where in the dark, if I pet my monitors with my hands in the dark, they're not quick to jump. They're not quick to flinch.
Nope.
Their tongue goes, and they're like, okay, we know who this is.
Well, that's
I'm
how
approaching them, you know, in a calm, assertive manner. I can pet them, and then they just go right back to sleep.
Yeah,
Calm.
because they know, and they also know one person from another. And it's honestly, the animals have been my classroom.
Absolutely.
Mike and I say that all the time.
I've been keeping reptiles since I was 5 years old, literally. I can't remember a time when my fondest memory is catching a ringneck snake in my yard, which I kept in a jar and tried to feed it cheese of all things, but I didn't know back then. And when they start to look bad, I turn them loose again and get a new ringneck snake.
You've come a long way, Tom.
Yeah, I have, boy. But it, you know, I was a college dropout. I mean, I didn't even go a whole year in college, and sometimes I wish I had them, maybe, but it was a different time then, and I didn't even believe you could make much money out of it at that point. And
well, you one-upped me again, Tom. I didn't make it out of high school.
Oh, okay. Well, You've earned a PhD in reptile keeping, that's for sure.
There you go.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You know, a lot of times I wish I can go back to my 5th and 6th grade teachers who, you know, this is in the 70s, and it's really horrible that this happened to me. But 5th and 6th grade, Pot Rose Peterson, that was my teacher. I probably wasn't the best kid, of course, but she told me that I would never amount to anything, and I just wish she could see me today.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was different. I was born in Marietta, Florida, and my parents did not like reptiles, but they kind of humored me because I always had them, no matter what they said or did. So they finally let me keep them, and I would buy Cayman at the Woolworth's dime store. And every October, when the weather got cold, they were outside in these kiddie pools. They'd die because North Florida got really cold. And once the water dropped to 50, they'd drown. So my mother was a waitress at the bus station and worked at night. My grandmother raised me pretty much. And my mother came home one day with 2 baby alligators. Somebody had killed the female and had taken the 2 of the babies because they knew I liked them and brought them to my mom to give to me. And I kept those and actually raised those up to 7 or 8 feet long by the time I was 18 years old. I was 9 years old when I got them. Then we built ponds in the backyard with tin fences and just crappy cages. But the gators liked it, you know, and my whole family got to where with the alligators, they didn't bother us. We didn't bother them. And the fig tree was in there, and my grandmother would make fig preserves. And she'd go in, and I'd see her straddling the biggest ones, about 8, maybe even 8.5 feet at the end. And she'd be straddling him, picking figs, and the alligator would pay attention to her, and she wasn't paying attention to the alligator at all. But snakes, they hated, and I could only keep venomous snakes at home once I was 16, and I was only ever allowed to keep snakes outside. They just could not stand them in the house. And I caught my first venomous at 12 years old, which was an Eastern diamondback. And I get down, got behind the neck because I'd watched others do it, and somehow put it in a jar. A gallon jar. And it rattling and tried to bite and got the top on it. I went home. Of course, it was rattling in the jar, and my mom and grandma went crazy. And they were going to kill it. So I ran back where I caught it and let it go again, about 1.5 miles from the house. Came back, and then, of course, I was on restrictions and all kinds of things for that. But I just couldn't let them kill the rattlesnake, you know. And from that point on, I've had venomous snakes my entire life, and I graduated from native venomous snakes to exotics because I worked for Ross Allen, and I worked for 2 or 3 years at Snakeatorium, which was a tourist attraction in Panama City Beach, Florida. And Denny Seabold and Ross Allen were 2 of my mentors, and of course I knew Bill Haas pretty well, but I never worked for him. I met Ron Whitaker actually working at Bill Haas' place in the 60s, 1960s. It's been a very, very long road for me.
Sure has.
The more I learn, the less I realize I know. And you said that at the beginning. Let me say something that I say to everybody. A master forever remains a student.
That's
always.
True.
I don't care what it is, be it in bodybuilding, MMA, herpetoculture, whatever it is. The time that you feel you have nothing else to learn is kind of where you're going to stop being. You're as good as you're ever going to get.
Yeah, you know, sometimes, Tom, I get offended. When people say, you're a goat, you're the GOAT, or you're a professional, or I say, you know what? And this is my actual, truly honest opinion. I call myself a reptile janitor and a food monkey. That's what I do. I maintain enclosures and I feed my animals. They do what they do because they are the professionals. They know what to do. All I do is keep them clean and fed.
You support their life support systems.
Absolutely.
What I tell people, to be on a little bit more educational realm, I tell people I'm a scatologist.
That's way better than me saying I'm a steward. I'm a steward to the dragons.
Yeah, I clean up crap.
Yep.
But you know what, Tom? At what point did you realize that it wasn't about how many animals you were keeping? When did you say, wait a minute, maybe I should cut back and make their environment more enrichment, more this? Like,
I always did that. If you look back at my pictures, I think you've seen them when I posted them. My Cyclura enclosures 40 years ago.
Yes.
My small ones were concrete block 12 by 12 outside with heated buildings. My Galapagos tortoises had about a half an acre enclosure, and there was 4 of them. I never kept my personal collection in anything but big cages. Back when I started keeping giant snakes, which is before almost any of you were born, I've had probably over 250 what I call jungle retics, the jungle giants, those retics with heads that big. Like that one tick I've got holding up, that one I had that's older, they don't get that head size until they start to get over 20 years old. And even an 18-footer in the wild will have a head bigger than like a 22-footer here, because that 22-footer is probably 10 or 11 years old, and it's been kept in a very small cage, and it's obese, and it'll die by the time it's 15 or 18. They'll never get as old as they probably live 40 or 50 years. I mean, I have Chilobathus here, meaning the Caribbean boas, that I've had for over 35 years. There's a Colombian boa here named Lucy that was a pet of a friend of mine who's here now that used to work for me. His son, when his son was in the 6th grade, his son grew up, graduated from college, and he gave it to Stacy and I, for our wedding anniversary. And she was about 9 feet long then, 6 years ago. And now she's 12 feet long and weighs about 70 pounds. It's the biggest Colombian boa I've ever seen.
Wow.
You see a picture of it straight down the yard with Mindy and Stacy and Morgan.
Yep.
Her head's about that big. She's like 8-pound rabbits or bigger. With not even making a big lump. It's like being another, like an 8-foot boa, a jumbo rat. So they don't live long enough because of how we keep them. We keep them in small cages. And the worst things that are abused, to be honest with you, are giant lizards and giant snakes. More so than the tortoises and the crocodile. Well, crocodilians too, but most people, once a croc gets about, or gator gets about 3 or 4 feet, they want to get rid of it anyway. But we shouldn't even begin to keep that stuff unless we can provide for it. And the best way is to research what you're buying ahead of time. Like I said, don't go to forums for information. The first thing you do if you want to buy an animal, find out where it lives in nature. Find out how big it gets. Find out how much territory it has, what it feeds on. Learn as much about it as you can from science, not from forums. Because human beings have a tendency to repeat things that other people say, whether or not they wrong.
Yes, sir.
Whether or not that they have any experience with it or not. Ron.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, come here a second. This is the guy right here, Ron Sadler, who had Lucy. And Lucy is
Hi, Ron.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
How old is she? 26 years old now?
Up close to that, yeah. In her 20s, yeah.
So she got that when your son was how old?
Yeah, we got it from a reptile expo from Jim Peters. It was a Type B pastel Colombian from his beard.
A long time ago. See what I'm talking about?
Yep.
So if you keep them right, which Ron did, and of course we did here, but he gave it, and they live long enough, you really get to see an animal that you don't see very often here in captivity at all. Because they don't live long enough. They just die. But if someone were to lock you in a bathroom, you'd live. You'd get fat because you can't exercise just like the reptiles do. If you put a mate in for you, be it whatever sex it is you prefer, you'd have sex. The animal would have babies. And people say, oh, breeding is proof I'm keeping it right. No, it's not. Captive breeding, if the life support system is right and everything's in place, that's a natural phenomenon similar to eating and drinking. It's not anything unusual. What's unusual is if your animal, like that big crocodile monitor, lets me walk around the yard with it sitting on my shoulder and try to run away. That's what I call success when your animals don't fear you, like Mike's stuff and probably your stuff too. I just haven't seen your animals or videos of them, but I can just tell by the way you talk that you understand. And, and yourself, it's much more pleasurable. You don't have to worry about opening the cage and having to fight a monitor. You can pick it up.
Tom, so one of my, most of my animals are very socialized and well-behaved with people. And this is something that just recently happened, probably about 8 months ago. I had people down here. And of course, when I have people down here and I pull out Kingpin, my 7-foot male sulfur water monitor, I take him out and I'm holding him. And while there's other people here, I read the animal, and if I feel him like getting a little tense, that's it. He goes back in his enclosure. If I don't feel that tension, I'll pass him to somebody else who then passes him to another person. Craziest thing ever happened to me, Tom. I pulled Kingpin out of my enclosure, and there was only one person. I literally sometimes have 7, 8, 10 people down here. There was one guy in the room with me, and I pulled Kingpin out, and Tom, he held me so tight, and he's like, "Oh, you think I could hold him?" I'm like, "Nah, he's going back in." He told me, and that's crazy because I looked at the guy like, whatever. But man, when Kingpin told me that guy was no good, I listened and I put him back. And then now I start thinking about this guy. I'm like, man, maybe he's really not a good person. Maybe not just scared.
Or maybe that particular moment. I've had someone come over, the same thing. My black dragon actually chased them out of the apartment.
I believe it. I had Bill, and all of you have seen how friendly Bill is. I've only ever seen him do this to one person, and it's one of the YouTube heroes, but years ago, not the local ones around here, but it went from Canada. So I'm in the cage with Bill, and I have my arm over him like this, which he likes, over his shoulder, and he's sitting on the box, and I'm feeding him raw eggs in my fingers. He'll open his mouth, and you've seen the picture of Stacy giving it Danny eggs, or Mindy, and how careful it takes it. So that guy was out the door, and I kept seeing Bill looking at the guy. And when that guy opened the door to come in, I said, he asked me to get a picture with it. I said, sure. When he walked in the door, Bill, I don't know if you've ever seen a really pissed off croc monitor, but they curl their tail up like a
yeah.
And he put his throat out and he hissed real guttural and loud. And then they give off that, what I call blood drool. I think their teeth bite the gums because of what they do. And blood starts to drip out of the lower jaw. And I've got my arm over it, and I thought, oh my God, it's going to bite. And I said, Charles, back out.
Yeah.
Right now. And he backed out, and the lizard was right back completely normal again.
That's it. They know.
I know. And I've only ever seen that once or twice the whole time with all the people that have seen him and interacted with him. But he would definitely, if Charles had gotten close to that croc monitor, it would have bit him.
It would have been ugly. Hey, Tom, I hate to interrupt you. Can we get Stacy in for a minute?
Sure. Let me go.
Stacy!
Come over here. Stacy does a lot of work with the croc monitors, too.
There you go.
Hi.
Pull up a chair, Stacy. There you go. So that's why I want to have Stacy on because, while we're talking about all of this stuff and, Stacy's your wife and your partner, and she definitely understands the behavior of these animals. And like you've said over and over, she has pictures of her just hugging and loving on Bill and Bill loving on her. And yeah, so Stacy, will you explain to us a little bit about your energy as you're doing that with Bill?
Yeah.
Just calm and happy.
Well, you're not afraid of it, although.
No.
And Bill's the type that if you are around the enclosure, not necessarily in the enclosure, will he seek you out?
Yo, guys,
Yes.
listen, if we
He
go
will?
in the enclosure, if I call Bill, I put up videos, actually posted them. I'm surprised y'all haven't seen them. I'll send both of you some PM when we get through here. 100% of the time, Stacy or I go in there and call Bill, he will come over.
And he'll come.
Every time that has nothing to do with food. I'm going to tell you something else about him that I can't figure out. Stacy is the one that began to take him outside and also to let him out of the box in the bedroom. I want to say this. I would never have done that because I figured if I let him out of the house, it would really freak him out. But it didn't. I walked in the bedroom. He's up on the bed with her, laying in bed with his head on her chest, and she's watching TV, and she took selfies. And I have a Happy New Year with him standing on our bed on his hind legs, his front legs on the window, and he's looking out the window, but it's cold outside. So when she took him outside, we have a lot of free-roam chickens in the yard, all over the yard. So these chickens are going to be running by Bill, and I knew it. And I just knew that his predator-prey instinct would get kicked off with these chickens, and it would run down and kill the chicken. So I always brought a net out there at first. For the first 2 or 3 months, I did it. Now, when I say she lets him out, I don't mean for 5 minutes. She let him out sometimes for over an hour. Like he climbs, he walks when he gets hot and thermoregulates in the chicken house. So anyway, whatever reason, if I took any one of these chickens and threw it in that habitat with Bill, he'd tear it to pieces.
Yep.
But yet the ones outside he ignores.
Well, every time he tries to tongue him or do something, I would just
She just takes
poop
his
him on
nose
the
and pushes
nose.
it, not hits him, and not with a hook, just with her finger. Just push
Right.
or anything. I just
Yeah, I
take
do that with Newt.
So I have a theory. I have a theory about that, Tom. You understand the animals and you work well with them. You're not afraid of them. They pick up your energy. I get that. And Stacy obviously has that too. I think the difference is, Tom, Stacy's way prettier than you.
Oh, I think you're right on that. But we actually have a video with Stacy, if you want to believe this, because Bill loves her the most. She is waltzing with Bill. She has one of his hands in her hand.
I've seen
Oh
that.
yeah, she's doing this. I love that video. Yeah, she's dancing with him.
His paws is through her fingers, just like a
Yes.
guy. And the lizard lets her freaking do it, even dipping down and all of this stuff. And I have a video of it, and I'll put it up because it's hard to believe. And it was a wild-caught adult crocodile monkey.
People still don't believe it. I share your videos all the time, especially that one with Stacy and Bill dancing. And people like, that's not real.
Yes, it
and
is.
I'm like, so you're saying that Stacy Crutchfield is AI? Because I think she's a real human being. Like, seriously.
I checked
People don't believe it. People don't believe that a human and a reptile, not just an animal, a reptile can have that bond.
They do. And also, we call it bonding with you, but it's actually a form of love, like your pet dog. And I have big sakura and stuff, and I've been letting them come in the house for years. Like big rocky iguanas, like a big hybrid named Hemingway that lives in the backyard. They don't have cages. My yard is separated by chain link fence. Now, any of them could get over chain link fence in about 5 seconds. They could actually, if they wanted to, run and jump to the top of the fence or almost over the fence. And they don't leave ever. Well, I take it back. Rita left one time for a week and came back. She was somewhere in the yard. The yard's about 1.5 acres and with a concrete wall around it, but they can get over the wall easy too. And Hemingway used to bask on the wall, my neighbor's wall, and on my wall in the back of my neighbor's yard. He never went over to my neighbor's yard. He'd come back over.
You took a picture by that wall, right?
Yeah.
I think that's Hemingway with you on the wall. Yeah. Okay.
And then Hemingway, but all that on the wall, that's Roscoe out front. And I just, wherever I pick him up and put him, he'll stay as long as I'll stay there.
Oh, he won't even eat if you put
They
him.
won't even eat if I'm petting him around him. But I hatched Roscoe out 23 years ago, and I'm the only. Another thing too. Let me tell you something I wanted to go into when you were talking about your captive bred monitors. They're very different, and reptiles are very much like birds in that they imprint on
the human.
around a human. And when you get monitors like yours, and the ones I've captive bred here, they imprint on you. And as long as you treat them humanely and don't scare them, and you understand that as well as anybody, then what you basically have is pretty much a domestic animal. And when it gets big, it's like a dog with scales.
Yeah.
And the big sakura here, we let walk around the yard. And they can get out anytime they want to, but they stay in their own chain link area, and that's their territory. Now, in the breeding season, like Fred and Roscoe are both big adult, big older male rhinoceros iguanas, probably weigh 30 pounds each. He's that one on my shoulder, Roscoe is, that big giant one that looks like he weighs 50 pounds, but it's actually about 35. And they'll climb over and jump fence with each other and fight. And then the one that climbed over will climb back to his side.
Or I could pick them up while they're in the middle of jump fence.
Yeah, she can pick them up right in the middle of jump fence.
They don't
They
care.
don't mess with her at all. And put them back on the other side.
Wow.
And we let them come in the house. And they have the same routine Roscoe does every time.
Roscoe does. Mark, and
She
he's like,
just put a video up, a reel up of that. Did you see it?
that was a while
It was
ago.
a while ago, but
He does the same thing every time. He marks the same spots.
goes to the same places, rubs his clank and marks the spot with his femoral pores. It's absolutely, it's stunning. But I've always known, going back to keeping them, I kept my stuff like when I first started, like really well. And even with the stuff I surplus, I kept giant snakes then when I get those big imported jumbo giants. They were in big walk-in cages. We didn't keep them in these freaking vision cages and pull-out racks. I love vision cages and pull-out racks are good for some stuff, but they're not for giant snakes and not for most lizards, including Gila monsters.
Yep.
intelligent to be kept and stuff like that. They're too active and they climb, and it's getting more and more difficult for me even to circle. I only sell what I breed, but it's getting more difficult to do that because I worry about what's going to happen to the young.
I am the same way, Tom.
I understand their sentience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that little the two little sufferers we have. This last one is really special. He's really friendly to us.
He's beautiful. I saw your post on them. He's gorgeous.
Chris is probably the nicest one I've ever seen.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
When Stacy first took him out, he was just like, "Hey, where am I?"
Well, to be perfectly honest, with you, it warms my heart knowing how those animals are going to live their life out. You know, a lot of these animals, I really question, like, morally, is this right to breed these in so many numbers? And how many of them are going to make it to adulthood? How many are going to be trapped in little cages? How many are, you know, right. So when I have some of my babies go to a facility like you and Stacy, it just warms my heart knowing that animal is going to be happy for the rest of its life.
We're going to take good care of it. You want to hear
the pinkies out today, too.
Okay, good. You want to hear a story about black dragons? You want to know how
Sure.
they arrived here first?
Yeah, absolutely.
I imported the first ones of those. They came from Thailand originally. When I was in Thailand in 1982, it was 84. It was my second trip around the world. And I was at Mr. Dang, owner of Siam Farm. He had a black water monitor there, 4 or 5 feet long. And I said, what is that? Now, Dang's first name, that's his nickname. Everybody in Thailand has a nickname. Mr. Dang was the guy in National Geographic with the albino Burmese. He's where the original ones of those came from. First calico retics, all that stuff. Albino retics, all of that. So Dang, first name is Komain, K-O-M-I-N. And a very famous Thai herpetologist by the name of Wirot, W-I-R-O-T, remember Protobothrops Wiroti, the pit viper, named after him, and Nudapun, remember how the Meduria ferrii Nudapundi used to be called? That was after Wirot Nudapun. Wirot Nudapun named that new water monitor, thinking it's a new species, Uranus comani. So about 1984, 85, I asked Dang, I said, once I got back, I said, please get me some of those and ship them. We've never seen anything like that. In herpetoculture, that name wasn't invented yet. I said, but I'd love to have some of those to put on the price list and maybe keep for a while. So he sent me in 8 of them. And he said they were from southern Thailand down near I think it's called the Isthmus of Kra, down toward the Malaysian border on islands off the coast. And I don't know if that's real where they came from. That's what he said. So we got them in, and one of them was like 7.5 feet long. It was a giant, gigantic one. And I put them on my price list for those that have copies of the old price list as Komain's water monitor. Uranus Salvator Komana. That's where they came from. That's where they originated. And now, of course, they're very commonplace. But I thought you might like that story.
Yes. I actually did my research on that. And I read a paper about
Tom, I may have one of your old price lists here somewhere.
They're wonderful creatures, as black domains are. I always like those, you know.
Yeah, I have one.
Unfortunately, I'd have to look through this whole drawer, but I'm sure I have one of your old price lists. Told you, I've been a big fan for a long, long time.
Yeah, but even our surplus stuff with the big monitors back then, we had water in there for those too. The big water monitors back then. And we didn't know how to keep giant snakes when I first started. But everybody I knew that had giant snakes, we didn't know much about them because we thought they were so big, they needed giant cages. So a friend of mine had a single car garage that he partitioned off almost all of it, except for where you walk in, you know, and it was one big cage. And he had one big retic, one big African rock, and one big Indian python in there. That's when Indians were common in the 60s. My double car garage, I had partitioned off into 3 big cages. Walk in, and all we had was a little path with a washer and dryer where to walk into the house, and the rest was a wall partitioned with 3 giant walk-in cages that were 20 feet long, 8 feet wide, and as tall as whatever the roof was. You know, 7 or 8 foot roof. So, but we didn't know better because we didn't. So many people now have done what I call they traded their passion for profit and glory.
Yeah.
And the animals are the ones that suffer because of it, and they can't speak for themselves. And my memes, like with the reticular pythons or the other stuff I publish, it triggers people sometimes. And then they get mad at me and attack me. The retic people hate me. They think I'm after them. I'm not. If you feel bad about my memes, I'm not targeting you personally. I don't even know if you have retics, but if you feel bad about it, it must be because you know that what you're doing is wrong and you're doing it anyway.
Yeah, you're looking inward. You're lashing out because your words out there in the public is.
So, yeah, so that's.
I was on a podcast, a retic podcast one time, and this guy goes, "Well, you got to stop putting up this mess." I don't have to stop doing a damn thing.
Tom, I remember that. It was classic. I loved it.
You got to tell me. I said, what I want you to do, I want you to answer me one damn question. And if you give me one valid reason, you'll never see another meme from me or anything else. Answer me this, for you giant snake keepers out there today, if it's it. Give me one good reason to keep giant snakes in small cages that benefits the kept and not the keeper.
Absolutely.
Give me one reason. There's not one, and no one has ever given me a reason.
And they never will.
No, they won't.
I've actually been questioned why you're always sharing those memes that Crutchfield has them too.
Those memes,
like, that's as clear and concise as you're gonna get. Like, there's no other way of explaining to people an ethical way of keeping an animal, and people they oftentimes confuse the words keeping and owning. Yeah. In my own personal philosophy, I don't own my monitors. I keep them. I care for them. I provide for them. I don't own them. If anything, they really own me. But if any, like, that's the difference. People don't get that.
You know that a friend of mine here that's very wealthy, we really wanted to build the big croc monitor. He goes, "Oh my God, that's so tame and all that." He goes, "I could use that in my demo." He's got a zoo, not here, but someplace else. Mm-hmm. And I said, "No," I said, "He's a pet. I can't sell him." He goes, "Well, I'll give you $15,000 for it." That's $15,000. I said, "There's no price on him. He's a pet. It would be like me selling Dexter, our dog. I can't do that." Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, and Bill's probably 15 years old now, at least, because my other buddy had him 3 or 4 years. He was an adult male when he was caught. And I've had him now about 6 years, probably. Yeah, about 6 years. Maybe seven. So he's about probably 15 years old, a little older, and he may not live to be more than 25, but it doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's not about the money. And Lord knows we're not rich or anything like a lot of retired. I mean, it costs a bundle of money just to keep this going, and we get by, but we don't have extra money for much of anything for us.
Yeah,
it all goes to the animals, and I've downsized so much so I can do better. If you go to our lizard cage, I mean, you wouldn't even believe the camo lizards. As soon as they see you, or if they hear Stacy's voice, they're at the gate trying to get out. But she is remarkable. Stacy is. I've never met anybody so much like me before. No, I didn't.
That's the dream.
Agree.
That's the dream right there. Like,
I agree, and it's so awesome that you have Stacy there, that is soaking up all of your knowledge, and she's very outgoing and smart in her own rights. But sometimes I think about, for me and what I do is how is it going to continue? And my kids, I get them involved. They want to be involved. So yeah, it's great to have someone like Stacy, because us old dogs ain't going to be around forever. And one thing I got to say with that, Tom, thank God for your memes. They are so necessary. Those will be around forever, and those stop people in their tracks. And like you said, either you agree with it, or there's a reason you don't agree with it, and then don't examine the meme. Examine yourself and what you're doing. It's like I say with the grocery store diets that people use to feed their animals. I said, hey, look, there was a point when I tried to be gentle about it. I'm not gentle about it anymore.
Yep.
If that's what you're doing and you feel offended and angry at me calling you out for it, don't be mad at me. Change your ways. Stop doing what you're doing.
I agree 100%, and we both feel the same way about it. And one good thing about Stacy is she loves him, if anything, more than I do. And like I said, she's the one that first decided to let Bill out of the yard. I thought it was a bad idea because I thought, not that he'd run away so much, I thought he might not, but I didn't know. I thought, well, if we put him out, it might be a problem, but it's really not. And even like our Gila monster, Pancho, I've had for 20 years in there. Stacy and Mindy especially likes him, will sit out there in the yard with him with the gate locked and everything. He's in the yard now. And he will walk about 12 or 15 feet from her. But if he gets scared or anything, the first thing he'll do is run back and get on her. Because what they are is you become their safety. What they imprint on you, it's like a baby chick running back to its mother. Does that make that make sense?
Yeah.
Bill,
Yeah.
we had this guy here taking pictures, and he wanted to get a pic of Bill behind this black backdrop. But this black backdrop was like, what, 4 or 5 feet long, probably, and big. So Bill was on the shelf, and Stacy's sitting in front of it, probably about 5 or 6 feet away from it, with 2 other ladies. And when he pulled that backdrop up, it scared Bill, and Bill jumped right toward them, but actually he jumped. And on Stacy caught him because she knew he was jumping to her, and he landed on her shoulder. And the other 2 people thought he was attacking them, and they screamed and ran. And that scared Bill even worse. He's hanging on to Stacy, looking around, what's going on, you know. And then she's petting him and stroking him and got him calmed down. And we put him back up on the shelf, and he sat there then, and he put the black backdrop away. It was a guy. I can't remember his name. Nathan Jordan. Actually, a long time ago, and it was amazing to see. They go for the safety factor is us.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Mine
like
do too.
we have big emus that we raise from like tiny little 2-week-old babies that are imprinted on us. Darwin and Sydney, and they have babies too every year. Usually just a few. We let them hatch out. We eat the rest of the eggs. It's about that big. And the big male, Darwin, we let them actually come in the house till they were about 5 feet tall. Actually,
I don't mean to be stupid or whatever. I'm truly curious about this. So 1 emu egg, you can't eat that all yourself, can you, Tom?
oh my God, you have
It's
to have a
equal
big
to about
appetite.
10 to 12 chicken
About
eggs.
a dozen.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of chicken. That's a lot of bird.
It's a lot of protein.
She makes really good French toast with emu eggs, let me tell you.
Okay, Stacy, I'm on my way. You said the magic word, French toast.
Hey, y'all are welcome anytime. Y'all want to come down and
Yeah,
visit.
I'm coming.
I got to get down there, Tom. I got to get down there. I have to.
Yeah.
I served that one too. I told you so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
these
we
guys
could
are
do a
in Vegas.
revisit interview in person. That would be phenomenal. I would like, that's my bucket list. I really, really would love to meet you guys in person, but also to meet Bill. I would really love that interaction.
You're like Scarface too. Scarface loves people.
Oh,
Scarface is
yeah.
the most gentle feeder I've ever seen. Did you know I have a video of feeding him a frozen thawed fuzzy mouse, not rat, mouse. And you know how you get them sometimes and they're kind of bent, half bent, sort of when they freeze. So holding it out, and he comes up, he's tongue in the hand. He takes his head, pushes the mouse out to unbend it, and then takes it from the side real gently.
Oh,
A mouse that big. I mean, a teeny, tiny, frozen thawed mouse.
And so with that being said, let's
You know what people get bit? If you're going to ask me what people get bit accidental monitor bites, let me tell you exactly what it is. All right, you're feeding them. They're in a feeding mode. The animal is tongue in your hand, get ready to eat, and it goes back to that fear thing I told you about. When that monitor lizard targets it, it's going to get it. When it opens its mouth to get it, at the very last minute, you get scared and do that.
yeah.
And it will stop the prey from escaping every time, which will mean that it's going to grab your hand.
Hold.
That's why they don't bite hard. They go, oh, well, it didn't bite me hard. Of course not. It was an accidental bite. The monitor realized it, but only after it bit you, because it's genetically programmed to stop the prey from escaping.
Or it has like the GPS in it, where it's
You
located.
understand?
Yeah.
And it knows exactly where it is by tonguing it and everything. And then you lose your balls when it reaches for it, and then you get bit, and then you blame it on the monitor making a mistake. No, it didn't.
Nope.
It didn't. It did what it's supposed to do. It did what it's engineered to do.
Correct.
You know what was a good, I think I have a video I have to look, but it was a good example was we had a white throat monitor, Johan.
Yeah.
And I have a pic or a video of me holding an egg, and you could see him like taking his nose and his tongue, like literally like measuring around where I'm holding it, and then he'll grab it.
And this is about a 5 foot how big your arrow is too. We're not talking about a little.
Right. See, and it's really, it amazes me that people, like I said, I'm just a food monkey and a janitor, and that's it. They're the pros. So when people get bit, they try to blame the animal. It's like, no, man, that animal knows exactly what he's doing. You screwed up. Yeah. You made a mistake, not the animal. That animal has no why, unless he's in a defensive mood. If he's looking at food and looking to eat, he has no reason to bite you because he knows he can't eat you. He wants that food, so leave it there. Let him get the food. Generally, it's gentle, and don't pull away.
Kenneth takes the Crutchfield, one piece in his hand. He has that big 7.5, maybe 8 foot water monitor, Slinky, that he lets it walk around the yard like we do Bill and everything. And Slinky will come up, tongue that, and very gently with his nose take that back from his hand and never bite his feet, never harm him. It understands. And we were talking about education before. Actually, Stacy used to be in the medical field. She has a 4-year degree in biology, basically. But she's a respiratory therapist, but your basically training was you were going to be a doctor, so you took a lot of pre-med stuff and all.
Yeah, so technically when I got my bachelor's in respiratory, since I already had so much like doing pre-med, your bachelor's is just biology. So I ended up with like a minor in biology, a minor in chemistry, a minor in psychology.
Wow.
And she used to work as a respiratory therapist at a hospital, traching people and all. It's like a nurse, but for the heart and the lungs specifically.
Yep.
And in Connecticut for like 10 years before we ever met him. I actually met her on the internet, and she had a problem with her iguana named Iggy. And I could see when she got home that iguana would jump up and down in the cage. She was on Facebook trying to get out so it could run over to Stacy and get on her shoulder. And I thought, God, for just a woman that's an actual nurse that's freaking lizard loves him that much, that's really strange. You know what I mean? And then it got MBD. It had MBD when she got it. She never kept reptiles. It was just a rescue. And so I tried to help her with the right veterinarian care and all that, but it died anyway. And then I gave her another one. We bring Green Iguanas in at no cost because I felt bad for her. She named it Packer after the Green Bay Packers a long time ago.
I remember how, like, when you mentioned about like them pushing the food out of your hand.
Yeah.
One of my water monitors is special needs. He has neurological issues, so he's got a kink in his neck. So he doesn't necessarily like grab food the way a normal monitor would or whatever. What he does is he would rather push the food item out of my hand completely. Mm-hmm. And I never understood why he would do that.
Why?
But then I think it's his way of saying I might bite, and I don't mean to.
You're right.
I'd rather it be on the floor because he'll have the food right in front of him, but he does this, because his neck doesn't allow him just to aim properly.
They're highly intelligent.
He'd rather push it out of my hand completely to avoid that conflict so that he can just go and pick it up from the floor.
They understand. They are that intelligent, believe it or not. And I know with you, I don't have to tell you that, but for a lot of you guys watching, the reptiles are sentient beings and they express here all the time. Even the venomous snakes. The big Mangshan viper I had would never bite a human being. Ever.
I love the Mangshan. That's just incredible. And again, a lot of it contributed obviously to your post and the stuff that you put out there, how important it is.
Well,
I think that if people would just stop for a moment and kind of realize that they're just not these mindless creatures. To me, in there's no creature on the planet that's mindless.
No,
they all have a train of thought. They all have their way of doing things, but we're not rationalize it because we're just seeing what's in front of us.
Right. Also,
too, sitting back and like watching them.
we look at things differently too, depending on how much they remind us of us. For instance, if we get a pet monkey, we're going to treat that pet monkey better than we would a pet cat, Jim. All right, we're going to treat a pet cat better than we're going to treat a pet parakeet. We're going to treat a pet parakeet better than we're going to treat a pet iguana, and we're going to treat a pet iguana better than we're going to treat a goldfish. The further it gets from us, the less we want to believe that they have feelings, feel pain, and have emotions. But everything. Did you ever see that YouTube called My Octopus Teacher?
What was that?
Just Google the YouTube. It's called My Octopus Teacher.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yes, I've seen that. That is so cool.
And so, you know, cephalopods and all of that are highly intelligent, more than what we think. And like the emus and just, God, I just could go on and on. But I always felt that I feel the need as I've gotten older, and the years in front of me are a lot fewer than the ones behind me. But I have to speak out for the reptiles that cannot speak for themselves. And that's why I put out the memes and the videos and everything else. I'm not targeting or attacking anybody. And if you get mad or triggered, that's it, hold it down because it's hard to hear. Or go right outside. If it targets them in any way, it's because it makes them feel guilty, I think, more than anything.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And if it makes you feel that way, you need to re-examine what you're doing and the way you're doing things.
Yeah, like you said, that's 100% right.
Yeah, and that's pretty much when Mike and I were talking about the podcast. We're not out to insult people. We're not out to blast people. The whole thing is like, can we please just stop for a moment and think what we're doing? Because at the end of the day, we don't lose. It's not us. It's the animal that loses. It's the animal that dies. It's the animal that gets sick. It's the animal that suffers. And even if you're meeting their dietary needs or certain husbandry needs, if you're not working that brain, that animal's suffering. If you put a human being in a box and just give them food, give them water,
they go stir crazy.
You'll
they're
live.
going to go crazy. There's something that's going to go wrong. And we're doing that. That's what we're doing to our animals. Yeah. And, you know, that's pretty much what SOAR is about. That's pretty much what Mike and I are trying to get out there.
I'm a fan of all you guys on that SOAR and all that stuff. I just don't.
Thank you. Thank you.
More, but I technologically retarded. Literally, I am. So I am not good at it. If I weren't for Stacy, I couldn't have done this because I don't have a clue how to do this.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy.
At this point, to be honest with you, I don't even want to know because there's so much other stuff I'm more interested in, you know, and I come from a totally different time, you know. But I will say this, the evolution of just herpetoculture has, when I was very young, the only market for reptiles were like traveling reptile shows and little tourist attractions and stuff like that, and rattlesnake rodeos, and they killed all the shit, you know, and killed everything. But as I got older and people started to keep reptiles more, and they're doing it all over the world now too, not just here, but Southeast Asia has a thriving herpetoculture community, South America, everywhere. And once you start doing that, there's starting to be reptiles in a percentage of households. So everybody knows somebody that has a pet snake or bearded dragon or iguana or something. And they become more mainstream. But when I was young, the only thing anybody wanted to do with any reptile was kill it on sight. Period.
Yep.
They just wanted to kill it immediately. And all that has changed for the better. People still want to kill them on sight, but it's not 100% of the people.
Yeah.
So, knowing you're an OG and you go way back, and I go pretty far back, not as far back as you, Tom, but I've been around a while. And one of my whole motivations in keeping animals, I don't care if it was a goldfish, a chipmunk, reptiles, whatever it was, I always wanted to keep my animals in what I thought was a naturalistic setup, a naturalistic enclosure. And coming up through the kingsnake.com days, and of course long before that, you know, I used to get a lot of kickback or whatever, negativity, that well, you really think that's what it's like in the wild? I said, well, you know what? I don't really know exactly what it's like in the wild, and I'm sure they know that they're not in the wild. However, I want to keep it aesthetically beautiful for myself, which I also think helps the animal, get more accustomed to captivity than, four walls and a burning light up in one corner. So in watching the Europeans all those years ago, the Europeans always had beautiful naturalistic enclosures, and I always wanted to gear myself towards that. So to see guys like Armand and Brad's Bioactive Builds and myself, really, these naturalistic type enclosures are really catching on. Like you said, Tom, not as many animals, but less animals kept in way better caging, way better conditions. And I'm going to push that until the day I die. And to see it starting to come full fruition, and, these naturalistic cage builds and all the products that you can use to do it, I love it, man. It's really good for the animals.
Yeah.
Sometimes less is more.
Yes. Yes.
It really is.
Yes.
I cut down when I had green iguanas and was buying and selling reptiles here. Probably I had over 1,000 reptiles here all the time, maybe even 2,000. Now we have just a couple hundred, maybe. Yeah, about that. But they're in much outside the habitats. I mean, like my snake cages, my smallest snake cages outside are 6 feet by 6 feet by 8 feet tall. And those are the small ones with live pothos and monstera, and cactus, and like the iguana delicatissima, which is a critically endangered species. This is our 3rd consecutive year breeding those. I planted the same cactus in there that occurs wild on Dominica. And they, believe it or not, keep that cactus trimmed down. They can't get any new shoots because they eat it all off. And their cage is 10 feet long, 6 feet wide, but 8 feet high. They can get up higher than our heads and look down at us too. And when you start to do that with everything, and I call it this, and I have memes that say this because it's sort of in plain words most people can understand. It's best to keep your creatures so that they can be the creatures they actually are.
And we could enjoy them more.
And that 12-foot boa that Ron was in here talking about, the biggest Colombian boa I've ever saw in my life, BCI, named Lucy. And they say, well, boas don't climb trees. Well, shit, she's in the tree out there. She can get up 7.5 feet off the ground. And in the springtime, she spends all her time up in the tree.
It's funny when people say that, and I say to them, what makes you say that? Well, I've seen a picture in the book of one on the ground. It's like, that's one picture, 1 second of a lifetime, and that's what you're going to draw your conclusion on. However, the reason you're not getting pictures of them up in a tree, it's not as easy to go up in a tree and take the picture. You catch them when they're on the ground, you take the picture, blah, blah, blah. So people draw these conclusions, and, man, they got to think like the animal, not the pictures and the information.
They all climb. I mean, I've been 6 of the 7 continents I've already visited. And well, she's called Peruvian red tail.
Oh, no, but what I was going to say is I see pictures of people in trees and books.
Yeah.
That
doesn't mean we live in trees.
Right.
But I just posted that video of that big Peruvian red tail, 12 feet long, in a tree. But it got me she went high up in the tree, but she was going high up in a tree, and she was at least 12 feet long. And I saw my wall right now, a video.
Yeah, I've seen some very heavy-bodied, like even anacondas.
Well, yeah, I've seen an anaconda 12 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And they can climb up a palm tree by using rectilinear locomotion, by wrapping around the tree and just going to the top like that. All snakes can do that, so they don't have any problem climbing anything. I've seen in Malaysia, I've seen 12, 14 foot retention trees. Are you kidding me?
One thing happened to me, Tom, many years ago when I was breeding North American desert rat snakes. I had a Trans-Pecos rat snake get loose in my garage, in my facility out in my garage. And man, I love all my animals. So I searched all over for this thing and I couldn't find it. I looked under everything, behind I couldn't find it anywhere. My son Dominic, who might have been 3 years old at the time, he goes, "Look, Dad, it's up there." I looked up there. So you know how in your garage you have a garage door opener?
Yeah.
That chain hangs up with the box. There was no way for him to get from a wall to this. Don't know how he got up there, but he was coiled up there. So you're talking about a Trans-Pecos rat snake from the dry deserts.
Yeah.
What does he know about climbing? Well, he knew exactly how to climb.
Any snake can climb. When I first, about 15 years ago, with Fish and Game permission, I kept certain species of venomous snakes outside. 2 of the snakes I kept were gaboon vipers, and I kept rhinoceros vipers. All right, a rhinoceros viper is very heavy, what we think, terrestrial viper. So I put this male out there. Actually, I was going to produce a albino, so I put it in with a big female gaboon. Big female gaboon, that's the one that Jay Brewer has now. That big one, he always, those came from here, and the rhinos too. And that big rhino viper, you can ask Stacy, spent 80% of its time coiled over the top shelf in the same sort of position as a Corrales might. An emerald or that like coiled down. And I'm thinking like, what the hell? Maybe it's scared of the gaboon, or maybe it doesn't like the cage. So fortunately, I've got friends all over the world. I'm talking to this friend of mine in Uganda. And I said, man, which real nice rhino vipers come from. I said, man, my rhino viper's staying in a tree all the time and the gaboon on the bottom. Why is that? He goes, oh, don't worry about that. He goes, that's normal. He goes, one of the ways the hunters catch them is go at night and look for them in the trees. And I go, say what?
Yeah.
Because they like nesting birds, and there's an arboreal rat they hunt too and lay an ambush for. And he said it's very common to find rhinoceros vipers in a tree in Africa. Well, we just got cut off, guys.
No, it's coming.
Actually, it
It's coming
came back.
back now.
Yeah, it froze for a little bit, but you're back, and we didn't lose sound or anything.
So I learned a lot of that too. I would, just because of the way the rhino viper looked, I would say they don't climb trees. And Dad, when he went to West Africa, the ones from Dahomey and I think Sierra Leone or some one of the other places right there, part of the year there are arboreal and feed on birds mostly. Ball pythons. And people say, oh, they live in termite grounds. No, they don't. They live wherever they want to live, and at night they're very active and come out, crawl around, and have big territory. That's just crap. And to keep ball pythons in like a stamp collection in a box is terrible for the ball python. It really is. And I don't mean to offend anybody or hurt anybody's feelings, but the truth is the truth. And someone, and by the way, anything I say, I'll debate anybody on this anytime. Happy to do it. But you won't win a debate on this kind of stuff, because if I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong. But if I'm not wrong, really what I'm doing is speaking the truth on the animals themselves. And I know that because I've been fortunate enough not only to see them and have captured ones for so long, but I have seen wild ones.
You've been out there.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, she went to the Amazon with me 3 times. Where we go 2 days away.
Hey, with that, Tom, I got to ask, piranha, that's a good tasting fish?
It's real good, yeah. And they're also not any kind of a danger to people.
No, they're not. They're more afraid of you than anything.
Oh, God, they don't do anything. I mean, I've been out there we've been out catching piranha, and they'll be like Yagua indigenous playing in the water not too far from where we are, and the piranhas are tearing our bait up. I'll tell you what, though, they're hard to catch.
Really?
I bet they're fast. People don't realize how fast those fish are. I've kept them before.
Tom, now are we frozen?
Yeah, I think he froze. He's back.
I can see Jen, but that's the only person I can
okay.
Yeah.
When you say the piranhas are hard to catch, are you talking on a hook?
Yeah, but they take it off the hook. They're just getting
I've literally knotted the bait around where I'm like, there's no way they're going to get this off. And they, for some reason, like 3 seconds, eat it meticulously off. I'm like,
yeah, the problem with a piranha, you know how they won't be well hooked a lot of times either because of their jaws. So they'll drop off the hook in the boat sometimes. They're not big, but like so big. But what we tell everybody, though, all our guests on the trip, Raise your feet up when it's boat. If that flops over near you, I like a
Good
laser.
advice.
If it bites you, it'll take a hunk of meat right out.
Mhm.
The Yaguá and the Piraha people and the Mayuma make their darts. They make grooves in the darts by taking it, putting the dart in the teeth of the piranha and turning it so that they can put the curare and the
They use
arrow poison
piranha
on.
jaws to like cut hair.
Yeah, they use piranha jaws to cut hair and all kinds of stuff. They're literally
Yeah.
sharp. Yep.
Well, I could sit here and talk to you guys forever, Tom. I just wanted to say we're almost an hour and a half into this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
The gift
I
of
just-
gab.
I wanted to thank you and Stacy so much for coming on the podcast. You're a fountain of information, and you know I got to say the most love and respect to both of you guys. And if you're willing, we'd like to do a Tom Crutchfield, Stacy #2.
Yes,
there we go.
definitely. Definitely. Thank you guys
Sounds
so
bad.
much.
We could do it.
Actually, we're the actual inspiration to also to create SOAR Network and the magazine to put good, positive messages out there for our reptiles. So
Good.
thank you very much. This means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to Mike.
So much.
It's an honor for me to be asked, and I'm a fan of both of your work. So
Thank you.
Thank you both very much, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
I said I hope you guys have the great rest of your day, Tom.
I think you cut out.
I think we're cut out.
Come back. It should. There he goes. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh,
Yeah,
I just wanted to say, have a great rest of your day, you guys. Much love, and God bless you, and I'll see you.
Thank you guys,
All
and
right.
have an awesome Sunday.
Yeah, our anniversary
Oh,
today, too.
happy anniversary!
happy
What am I,
Annie!
stupid? Hey, I'm like a fanboy here. I'm
Yes,
I'm
look at
starstruck. Happy anniversary!
Happy anniversary, guys. Enjoy Sunday.
And I met her about 12 years ago.
Nice. Good.
Anyway,
I'm
thank
happy.
y'all.
Yep.
Thank
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Stacy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.